So today we're going to talk about how to manage your time for success. So hopefully by the end of this workshop, you will be able to describe some important reasons to have good time management strategies, be able to list some time management tips that will be helpful for you to use, develop a plan here together with us for strategies and tools that you can actually implement, and then identify some common challenges that you are facing when it comes to time management. So hopefully you guys can walk away with some practical things that you can use starting tomorrow maybe. So my name is Melanie. I, like I said, work with ACS. I am a student success coach. I am really passionate and love being here. I want to help students and empower them to be able to balance their workloads, but also help them thrive personally, academically, work through what it means to be a student for yourself here, because that's different for everyone, especially because we also know a lot of students are here that are working or doing sports or helping take care of families. So time management is like super essential when you're doing a lot more than just being a student. Okay, so a few things that I found. Obviously, like I said, you guys have really high demands and tight deadlines. So being able to be efficient to reduce stress is one of the main reasons students want to learn about how to manage their time to the best of their ability. Like I said, you guys are balancing multiple roles, so being able to know what that looks like. Social life is important. I feel like a lot of students sometimes forget that. It's important to be able to make time for yourself. Self-care is important. So figuring out what that looks like and not feeling guilty about putting that into your schedule. Throughout the workshop, I will kind of like leave tips like this, but then we'll also talk about some strategies. So the first thing that I want us to try to do and think about is what it means to do a time audit and what that is. So why should we do a time audit? What is it? So a time audit is a way to help you keep track of like what you're actually doing. So it gives you an idea of what are you doing every day, even though you feel like you're doing other things. So it allows you to see opportunities where you can be more effective, be more efficient, be more productive, but also give you an actual picture of like, I say that I study 5 hours a day, but then when I'm looking at what I'm doing, I'm actually only studying for 30 minutes a day. We are going to look at this pie chart. So if we're just thinking about, in this instance, 24 hours in the day. So think about maybe your busiest day. I want you to write out what are you doing for that time. So each of these little slivers is 1 hour because we've got 24 of them. Make sure that you are including everything. So classes, studying, sleeping, going to the gym. If you're a commuter, that takes up time that you're not able to be in class or study. Obviously, class time is important. So be as specific as you can and do not forget anything. Scrolling social media is probably something to put on there too, or like watching TV, anything that you're doing. If you're working another job. Also remember to put time that you eat. That's one thing that I notice students, I'm like, when do you eat lunch? They're like, oh yeah. I don't normally eat lunch. I normally walk and eat while I'm going to class. Okay, so once you've written everything out, somewhere on the side, or if you have it colored in, try to like add up the amount of hours you are doing for each particular thing. So as you're adding up and looking, what are the 3 most time-consuming tasks that you have? When we're looking at a time audit, there are, I would say, two different ways that you can do this. You can plot out your week like we just did with like actually what are you doing every single day, and then plotting out this ideal schedule that you have. Like what do you want to be if you're like at your highest, most perfect self? And then kind of seeing where those two can intertwine, how you can make that a reality, realistically. So when we talk about time management, obviously we have to talk about what are some challenges that get in the way. So these are some of the biggest ones: procrastination, overcommitment, lack of prioritization we talked about, distractions is a big one, work shifts, and family obligations. Tip number 2, which seems counterproductive, but it's actually very helpful: do not multitask. Multitasking is a myth. I don't know if you've heard that before, but it is. Studies have shown that multitasking can negatively affect problem-solving abilities. So if you're waiting to the last minute and then you are multitasking, you are not going to be as effective at problem-solving, completing the assignment, and then also switching tasks can drain your brain. So you are also potentially likely to make more mistakes. So as easy as it seems to be like, oh, I'll do these 2 things at once, it's a lot faster and just better to do one thing and then finish that and then do the next task. Okay, so now we're gonna get into some actual tips, tools that you can use. These are take them, leave them, use them all, use one. You can use them however you want. They can be used together or separately. Okay, how many of you guys have heard of the Pomodoro technique? So you work for 25 minutes generally, and then a short break is normally 5 minutes for the first 2. I believe, and then you take another 25 minutes, and then you get a longer break at the end. It is important to remember that when you take a 5-minute break, you should like move away from your desk, give your eyes a break from your computer. At that moment, if you feel so led, you can look at social media, but it should not be a 5-minute break that leads into like, oh, I'm taking a break for an hour now, and now I've not actually completed this assignment. So it's helpful to use this when you feel like your energy is fading or you are having a hard time focusing. So breaking it up into smaller increments and then taking a small break can be helpful for some students to get focused, get motivated, take a break, and then get back to it. It can also be helpful when you feel, like some of you said, that this task feels like it's too big. So breaking it up into a smaller chunk can seem more manageable in that moment. And on all of these how-tos, there's always a celebration at the end because you should celebrate the things that you're doing because it motivates you, it encourages you to keep going. So this is the first technique, the Pomodoro technique. There are a lot of free websites and timers that you can use. You can just set a timer on your phone. There's lots of fun ones, though, that are online. This one is my favorite. It is called Eat That Frog. It is based off of a book called Eat That Frog. This is the idea of doing the most daunting, scary task first. Because if you get it out of the way, it builds this sense of accomplishment. You build momentum. You feel like, okay, I've done the biggest thing today. I can accomplish anything else that I want to do. I use this, and a lot of people do, when you keep putting off the most important task, but it's very intimidating. So how you do this is you will identify whatever this big task is. You will schedule it in your day, whether you use this. There are some little planners over there that you can take as well. Obviously, you have to complete the task, and then again, celebrate because you've done it. So this one is called the Eisenhower Matrix, and it is similar to this, A, B, C, D, E, so whatever your brain would like to think of it as. But both of these are prioritization systems. So these are prioritization systems. This is when you feel like you have a lot of busy work and you keep checking things off of your list, but then at the end of the day, you feel like I haven't actually done anything productive today. So this will help you to figure out, okay, what is the most important to the least important, and then schedule it and do it in that order. So there's two ways to think about this depending on where you are kind of in life. So there's this do, decide, delegate, delete. And then there's this important and urgent, not important and not urgent, not important and urgent, and not important and not urgent. So obviously the ones that are important and urgent are the ones that you kind of want to get done. And there are a few ways to do this. So for me, I have a similar prioritization system where it's like a to-do list, a maybe list, or like if I have time list. So there's lots of ways to kind of create these prioritization systems. But it's just really important to know like what's actually urgent, what actually needs to get done versus like what would I like to do. And this is the same. So you just order it based on the alphabet, depending on high priority, urgency, all of those things. This idea about delegating. So if it's like a group project or if it's something that like maybe your sister asked you to do, but it's like not super important. You're like, hey sis, can you just kind of do this because I don't really have time. There are some things in which you can kind of like delegate back to someone or delete for another day or another week or whatever. This is another one. It is time blocking. So it is exactly as it sounds. You block off a set amount of time to do some sort of task. So this is helpful when you feel like you're constantly getting interrupted and can't focus. So some students really like breaking things into the Pomodoro technique. Other students are like, if I take a break, I'm not getting back to it. So I'm just going to chunk out 2 hours and I'm going to knock it out and be done. So for those students, it definitely helps boost their focus and efficiency. So similar, schedule the time in your calendar, put away distractions, turn your cell phones off, put yourself in a space where you're going to be able to focus. Focus on whatever that one task is. So it could either be a big project that you're working on, maybe a whole class, and you have like a few assignments for that class. So there are a lot of ways to break down even any of these techniques that I'm offering you. And then, of course, celebrate. There are a few ways to time block, so even more customization. So there is this traditional way where you can just do it by task. So like I said, you will do your English assignment or whatever it is. There is this thing called priority task batching where you can combine two things, batch them, and then do them at the same time. So things that kind of just like make sense in your brain for you to be like, I'm just going to do both of these at the same time or all three of these. You can do it that way. So like I said, like if you have English homework as a whole, but not one assignment. And you're like, I'll just do all of it right now for the week. My discussion post, go to the writing center, whatever. And then this is the one that I generally use, this energy cycles. So it does cause you to reflect on who you are, how you live your day. But when do you have the most energy? When are you most creative? When are you able to think strategically? Those are really important things to pay attention to, because if you're not really creative in the morning and you're like, I need to write a creative essay, that's going to be kind of difficult. If you know that you are not a morning person and you try to do something in the morning like math, that might also be very difficult. So really paying attention to who you are. There's no right or wrong answer. You can do work whenever you want. That's the beauty of college. So kind of figuring out what that looks like for you. Time blocking by your energy cycles is amazing. Like I said, I do that a lot because it just helps me. I know in the morning I'm not really with it, so I read emails. In the afternoon, like right now, I like being creative and out. I do workshops. I create workshops. I do a lot more creative thinking, so that's when I can feel the most productive, which leads us here, to know yourself. I feel like students are really hard on themselves because like I feel like I should be a morning person and you're just not really. And there are some times where some semesters you don't have a choice. This is when the class is and you do your best, but giving yourself grace and kind of analyzing the patterns, identifying when you're at your peak productivity, taking all those things into consideration and just being really gentle with yourself is helpful because it will make things a lot easier as you're trying to do assignments and try to like go through classes and everything. Okay, so how can we manage distractions? What are some ideas? Obviously, the first thing you have to do is figure out what is frequently disrupting your focus, which we already did. A lot of you guys said hanging out and your cell phones. So perfect. We know what is frequently disrupting your focus, so now we can come up with a plan. Another thing is to establish a distraction-free work environment. So this also goes back to knowing yourself. How many of you guys study effectively in your rooms? So. Okay, so you guys know I cannot study in my room, so you don't study in your room, right? You remove yourself and you put yourself somewhere else. Exactly. So simple little things like that go a long way. I think students, again, are like, oh, I'll be fine. I can just study in my room, and then they start cleaning or watching TV or taking a nap. There's so many places on campus to study, so many. Silence notifications, like we said. Keep a clean, quiet workspace, whatever that looks like for you. I've talked to some students. They have like these nice little rituals where they have fuzzy socks or coffee, or they have special pens that they use. Whatever you need to signal to your brain that like we are in go mode, this is what we're doing. You can be as creative as you want. It's your work study station, whatever you want that to look like. Kind of like the Pomodoro and all the breaks, allocating specific times to check your emails or messages. So there's nothing wrong with doing that, just making sure that you don't get distracted by it, that you have a time set for those things. Because giving brain breaks is also very helpful. You can only work for so long before your brain's just like, okay, we're done. That's it. And then probably the biggest thing is learning to say no. So a lot of you guys are like, I hang out with my friends. Love friends, that's awesome. But sometimes you gotta be like, hey y'all, either study with me or y'all gotta leave. And they hopefully will understand. If they're your real friends, they'll be like, you're right, we should study. Okay, so another method is this 1-3-5 method. So this one is one to simplify tasks. So I am one, like I said, I have a lot of to-do lists and they're just ever growing. So this is helpful for me to see, kind of like prioritizing, like what is the most important thing. And also, realistically speaking, I cannot do 17 tasks in a day with a full-time job. And you guys cannot do however many tasks you think you can do. So this helps you to figure out, okay, what is my one big task? If you think to yourself, if I don't do anything else today and I only get one thing done, what would be the biggest, most important thing that I do today? And there are a few ways you can think about that. You could have one big task maybe for like school and then like just like personal. So like if going to the gym is really important to you, that could be like your one big task for like your personal thing, and then school could be like, I need to go to the writing center, I need to go to the smart center, like whatever. And then 3 medium tasks and then 5 small tasks, because once you finish your big task, you can say, okay, well these are like kind of important, like I should get them done in the next few days. So once I've done my big task, then you just move on to the next ones. I always tell students, no matter what method you are using, sit down the night before, the morning of, every day, and kind of chart out what your day is going to look like. And then at the beginning of each week, I do the same thing as well. So Sunday night, whatever day you want to do it, whenever your week starts, sit down, chart out what am I going to do this week, and then have whatever system you're going to use. And then the day before, the same thing. Look at what you're actually doing that day, because our weeks change, our days change, and that's totally fine, but being able to go in with a plan helps you to stick to the plan a lot better. Because then your friends can't say, hey, there's such and such on the campus. You're like, well, I already scheduled 3 o'clock to go to the time management workshop, so you can come with me. Okay, so how to overcome procrastination. This one's a tough one, but it's possible. So like we did with the distractions, we need to figure out like what is the cause of our procrastination. And these are some of the biggest ones that research has shown and that students have said. So this idea of fear of failure and perfectionism. I have struggled with this one, and this is still something very difficult for me. So this idea of setting a good enough standard, or like just to get started. It doesn't have to be perfect, but like try to do something. Because once you get started, you kind of feel like, okay, this isn't so bad. This idea of overwhelm, so we talked about that, like a task feels so big. So instead of this big kind of thing, write my research paper, something super simple, find 3 sources. Or something super simple, read the instructions, talk to my professor. Something to just get you started. We talked about this one, lack of motivation or boredom. Accountability is probably one of the best ways to do this. So you can meet with me, you can meet with a different success coach, someone to just help hold you accountable that you're going to do whatever this terrible project or assignment is that you do not want to do. I strive off of external motivation. I cannot hold myself accountable to really anything. So accountability is amazing. And I tell students all the time, meeting with success coaches is great. I am a full-fledged adult, and I pay $80 a month for an accountability group. It is expensive out here to like have accountability. So all of these resources are really great for you. We can meet with you guys weekly, bi-weekly, monthly. Like we can meet as often as you want. They don't have to be long appointments. They don't have to be scary. We can sit and chart out your week every week if you want to, whatever you guys need. We are really here for you, and we want to see you guys succeed. And then I think a big one is this idea of imposter syndrome. All of us feel like, I'm not supposed to be here. I'm doubting myself. This is not really who I am, but I feel like I can be. So in this instance, facts are your friends, not feelings. So if you feel that you're doubting yourself, list 3 things to prove that you're capable. So past successes, positive feedback, something that you know you're good at, to reinforce this idea that like, no, that is not true. I actually am capable of doing this. And the more you do it, the easier it gets. I like mantras and affirmations. I got a lot of words posted everywhere, which seems cheesy, but the more you see things, the more you reinforce ideas, the more confident you feel about different things. A few other ways to manage procrastination is this idea called the Ohio method, only handle it once. I do this with my emails. So once I read an email, I respond, I do whatever I need to do, and it's done. Because going back to the same task takes up a lot of time. It takes up a lot of brain space. Similarly, this idea of a 2-minute rule. So if it's something that I'm like, well, I could probably just do this really quickly, then just do it. Because again, the mental load is real. It just takes up a lot of space. And then this does not work for me, but rewarding yourself is very helpful for some students. I am not that disciplined. I am a eat cake before vegetables type of person. But some students are really great about rewarding themselves for completing tasks. It doesn't have to be a big thing. It could be, I'm going to go to Starbucks now. I'm going to get a donut. I'm going to go for a walk, or I'm going to call my friend, or whatever it is. But then also, you have to have consequences for not finishing these actions. So whatever that looks like for you. Set mini deadlines. And then similar is this idea of reverse planning. Have you guys ever tried this? So reverse planning is kind of like one of you said, you look at your syllabus, you read the full assignment in its entirety, and then you kind of feel like, okay, I've got to write 5 pages. So if I work backwards from here, how much time do I need to research? How much time do I actually need to write? And then once you have some sort of planner, I advise getting like a month view, a week view, and a day view, because then you can see like, okay, how many days in this month is this going to take me? And then from there you can see how many days each week do I need to allot to this, because then you have now broken up this huge assignment into small ones, starting from the end of the semester all the way back, and now you have effectively managed your time and you don't have to be stressed about anything. And it gives you buffer for, like I said, in case anything happens, or if there's lots of drafts, or if you need to go to the tutoring center. So it gives you an idea of, like you said, like how much time I actually might. And I would also suggest with reverse planning, kind of offer more time than less. So overestimate maybe how much time it might take, just in case anything does happen. Planning tools are helpful when we talk about time management. So there are other project management apps like Trello, which is free. A lot of students use Notion, all of these. There are a lot of great tools built in with the Microsoft platform that we use at KSU. So I would take advantage of any of those free resources because you already have access to them tied to your KSU email. And then physical planners can be helpful for some people, to-do lists. So there's lots of awesome, there is another thing called Notebook LM, which is a study platform, but I think there are ways to organize things there. A lot of the students that I've talked to use that. There's a free version, but there's also a paid version. So that is more like study strategies, but it is another awesome tool just to consider for studying, which is also tied to time management. A few calls to actions. Obviously, apply these techniques. Identify and focus on what your main priorities are. And like I said, evaluate. You can review all of these. These are just tools, like I said, for you to have. You can carry them around. You can use them. Different classes might call for different ones, different semesters, depending on if you're super busy or less busy. There is no right or wrong way to use them. You can interchange them. I use probably a lot of them on a daily basis. So before we leave, I want you to set one SMART goal and figure out who will be your accountability partner of one way you're going to improve your time management this month. So remember, when you're making a SMART goal, it needs to be specific. So kind of like the example that said write an essay, that is not going to be helpful. Something that is going to be very specific, that you can very clearly see what you're going to do. Realistic, obviously, timely. So your example sentence should say something like, I am going to implement the Pomodoro technique for one class for the month of April. Something that's very specific, because if you just say, I'm going to use a time management strategy, well, that's very easy to flake out on, and then you can't really hold yourself accountable. Take control of your time. A few things to leave you with. Time management is a skill that you can build. It is not something that you are born with. These are all things that we can learn and build on. So if you don't have it now, that does not mean you cannot get it. Like I said, experiment with different strategies. You can pick ones that work for you. You can swap them out. You are not confined to one strategy. And then, of course, balance is key. Work hard, but please do not forget to rest and recharge. It is equally as important.